All righty, we will call this Board of Directors meeting to order at 7:07 p.m. This board has written and supports a land acknowledgement and anti-racism statement that is posted on the board's website. Roll call. Brian messaged me and he has an excused absence, and I have not heard from Kanu or Keith at this point, but neither one of them are here at the moment. So moving to adopting the agenda.
Hey, AJ.
What's up, Josh?
Prior to adopting that, I have a question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
I would like to nominate and appoint the second director for the communications committee. I do have a spot for approval of members, so can I do that at that time? Is that okay?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, cool.
Cover both. Okay. I did send out an email, kind of last minute notice to everybody for a capital request that's pretty important. So, and then I also would like to have a quick discussion as well about board orientation dates, so we can put that on the calendar and force us to get it rolling. So I'd like to make a motion to amend the agenda to add a capital request as item 5B-3 titled 2022 road repair project, and then add a item 5E board orientation discussion.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Sorry. Sonia. Sorry about that.
All right. That passes unanimously. So I'll move to adopt the amended agenda.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Do we have any announcements? All right. Hearing none, we will move on to property owner comments.
Yeah, I've got 9 attendees with us tonight. If anybody would like to jump in for property owners comments, just raise your hand. Oh, we've got one from Linda. Linda, I'm going to go ahead and bring you over here and unmute when you're ready.
Okay, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
So I was reading the views. I want to thank John and Dan Pike for getting the views current and up on the website. Thank you so very much. And reading the pay-per-views, you have, how do I say it? You have an announcement from the marina that they have their new rates out for this year, and golf has increased rates. The board is supposed to approve any changes in rates or fees before they go into effect, and this has not been done. In fact, the fee schedule that is on the Sudden Valley website currently is called the 2020 fee schedule, and it has a date at the bottom of it of 12/12/19, which is probably the board meeting that the board approved those at. You also on that list, you still have the fee that you rescinded, the capital fee that you rescinded is still on that fee schedule. And the increase in the accounting fees that was approved the way it should be at the December meeting by the board to increase it to $475 a month. None of those changes have been made, of course. So right now you've got, I assume the mailings have gone out for the marina, maybe not yet, but that's not legitimate until you guys bring a fee schedule forward and vote on it.
Yeah, that's it's on our to-do list with working with Dan.
So can I comment on that? Golf
Sure.
always changes their fees in October. That occurred even when you were on the board, Linda, and yet the board tends to always change the fines and fee schedule at the beginning of the year. We've been working with Brian and other staff members because all of these things are coming due at various times throughout the year. And the previous board over the last decade consistently updates fines and fees at the first of the year. That's going to change, and we'll start to do that in the fall to coincide with those changes that are happening with golf. But this is very consistent. This has happened year after year after year.
Sonia, I can remember when we were dealing with the budget and we asked Brian because he had increased his rates and stuff and his anticipated revenue for 2022. And I asked him if he was increasing his rates, and at that time he would not comment. You probably can go back to one of those board meetings. I guess, take a look at it and see which one it was at. But he declined doing that, but he knows that those rates should be approved before he starts charging people for them. And with the marina, it's like, that's a big jump you guys have taken. And it's like the rates have gone up considerably. And it's like, how does that match with the revenue that you budgeted for this year? That's something else that wasn't answered during the budgeting process. I'm just saying there's tons of stuff. I'll come back little by little with there's stuff that's all over this website that's really inaccurate or hasn't been dealt with.
Sure, but I'm just curious why
you're required by the bylaws to approve them.
Sure we are. And the staff that changes those should actually introduce them to the board. My point is, even when you were on the board, that wasn't occurring. We're taking steps to ensure that does not happen moving forward.
Well, I'm saying Sonia, the last fee schedule that's posted on the Sudden Valley website has a date. It's the 2020 fee schedule, and it has a date of 12/12/19. So I bet if you go back to that board meeting, you can see, and I guess I'll go look and send you an email, that it was probably.
That's not my point, Linda. I'm not saying you're wrong. What I'm saying to you is there has been a communication breakdown to where the board is implementing things at a different time than when these department heads are. We are taking steps to correct that. So this next year, that will not happen again. These changes happen. It will happen on the fines and fee schedule. It will come out at the next board meeting, and we'll take a vote on it. But there's a lot of pieces to this because these departments are working off of a different calendar. And I'm saying to you that this has occurred numerous times, even while you were on the board. We're trying to do exactly what you're saying, follow the bylaws, follow the rules and regs and everything that we've got in place. And we're doing what we need to make sure that that happens in the future.
Sonia, thank you. And Linda, I would like to thank you for bringing it to our attention. Can you do us a favor and email the board what you see, those inconsistencies? That way we have it in a list form so that they can be reconciled. Would you be willing to do that for us so we can get these things sorted out?
Well, there's a lot of stuff that's there, and it's different stuff. The fee schedule is a big one and an easy one to send to you guys. Mm-hmm. That still exists. You've got a copy of it on your website. Right. I'll be happy to send you a copy of what's there.
Or no, just the things that you brought up just now. You brought up several things. So just so that way we have it written down and we can approach them one by one. If you don't, that's fine. But just asking to have something in writing if you're so inclined. If not, we can just go back to the recording.
Linda, I think what Kim is trying to say is that you mentioned that there's a lot of stuff, and it would be a goose chase for us to be trying to uncover a lot of stuff without.
And that's why I'm just dealing with the fee schedule. That's a biggie for me, and probably of all the things that are on there, that's the biggest thing to me, because Joel followed exactly the procedure that should be followed. Brian knows how this works. He's been with us several years. I don't know. I'm not certain who made the mortgage fees, I wouldn't expect it would be the two people that we have that are in rec, because they are as new as they are. I'm assuming they had somebody's assistance, but certainly the board should be looking at this and seeing, are these rates going to get you to meet your budget for 2022? That's kind of what has always been presented in the past.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's something you should look at your earliest convenience, because people are being booked and charged these fees, and in theory, they're not in reality, and somebody needs to find the
It's
fee
scheduled to
schedule
be
and
on the
update
next
it.
agenda. It will be at the next board meeting. I said that repeatedly.
Yes, but so do you know how many people have paid their mortgage fees for the year and
Linda,
their
that's
golf
not the
fees for the
discussion.
year?
Your discussion is, when are we going to put the updated fines and fees in front of the board? We're in the
Yes.
middle of working with the department heads right now to do that.
Okay,
We're also working with Dan and Josh to, we recognize the website needs some updating. So, we're working on doing some new revamps to the website as well through
the
the beginning
last
half of
thing I
this
have,
year.
and I'm going to ask AJ this question and then I'm done, is I have a question about one of our job postings. And I know that it appears that there's a conflict with the union contract over one of the openings that you have. And I don't know that you've made it public, but when I looked at one of them, it looked like there was a conflict. Should I just simply send an email to the board what I'm looking at? And unless you've talked to the union, I don't think we can list one of them as we're listing it.
Sure, you can go ahead and send an email.
All right, I'll do that. I'll be happy to. All right, I'm done. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Linda. Okay. Anybody else for property owners' comments? Just use raise hand in Zoom. And I've got a hand raised here from Trang. Let me go ahead and bring you over here. And you can unmute when you're ready, Trang.
Hi, everyone. Trang Warlan, 18 Doe Court. Linda actually brought a point. When did the discussion of the marina fee happen? Because didn't we just increase it last year, 10%? Is this something just based on the manager's approval, or I don't know? I'm just wondering when that discussion was brought up.
We discussed it at our budget town hall meetings and our budget meetings, and it was a recommendation from staff to be included as part of the budget.
And the reason before, when we had a waiting list, there was no fee. Was that an addition at that meeting too? Now that we're charging people to be on the waiting list? Or are you guys not familiar with? I just got the letter. It say that for you to be on the waiting list, there's now going to be a fee associated with that. And there was never one before, so I didn't know why that is new. Y'all look puzzled.
Not aware of that.
Nope, not aware.
Okay, well, I'll guess relook at my marina.
We'll have to talk with Dan about that and see where that came from.
Okay.
Because
We didn't approve it.
Yeah, I thought that was strange because we were on a waiting list for 3 years and we finally got his wet slip. But I noticed that in the new letter, it states, here it is. Okay, sorry. I thought you guys, yeah, so maybe I'll send it to you guys because I'm just reading the letter now.
I mean, I don't know about, so I didn't receive any, obviously didn't receive a letter, and we didn't approve anything on that regard. So I am not 100% sure.
Okay, well, I will find that and I'll let you guys know. Maybe I misread it, but that caught me off as a surprise because as a person or a resident who's been on a waiting list, I don't want to get charged to be on a waiting list. But
so Trang, sorry, like my grandkids were just leaving and they were saying goodbye to me. So I didn't mean to ignore you, but I know what you're saying. We've been here for a lot of years, and there has never been a fee for the wait list before. So, I mean, sorry, I did kind of miss some of that. So it's
Okay, I found it, sorry. So
yeah, but there is a fee to be on the wait list, and I was kind of surprised by that too.
Oh,
but
so we did see it.
There's always been a wait list for like 23 years that I've been here. There's always been a wait list. And I would suspect it's part of the fact that people have been letting other people use their spots because Canadians can't come down and all of that. So, I mean, that's the only thing I could think of the reason it was put on, but it is very new. It's the first year that it's ever shown up.
Okay, so that was discussed at the board and we initiated that this year.
No, the board didn't initiate that.
Okay, so.
And neither the executives, acting as the GM never had any conversations with staff about doing something like that.
All right, well then it was mailed to me and Michelle wrote it. So it's the third part of it where it says that we now have a new initial setup fee of $100 and all customers on the waiting list will be paying a $30 annual fee to remain on the wait list. So something I thought was different. But if you guys can check on that and let me know.
We're going to be discussing the fines and fees schedule here next board meeting. So we'll make sure to address that as part of that discussion.
Thank you. That's it.
Thanks for bringing that to our attention.
All right, thanks, Trang. I'll go ahead and return you to the attendees. And anybody else, just use raise hand in Zoom. It'll be down at the bottom of the screen on your computer or on a mobile device. There should be a little 3-dot menu. You just tap that, you should see raise hand. And that might be all for now. Got another session at the end of the night, I believe, although there is a closed session. Oh no, it'll be right before the closed session. Great. Oh, Linda's back. I'll go ahead and bring you back over here, Linda. All right, go ahead and unmute when you're ready.
I'm sorry, I was just lowering my hand because I noticed I hadn't done it at the end of when I spoke. I have nothing more to say.
Okay, no problem. Thanks, Linda. All right, I think that's everything, AJ.
Okay. All right, move on to the next agenda item, which will pass it over to Dan for General Manager's report.
Sorry, just trying to get my mute button off. So first of all, I'm going to start with what I was going to say, but I also want to just address a couple things that were talked about just to bring up a little bit of information. So I just want to say that, I've talked with the managers and thanks to a lack of snow, they're catching up. The parks and the golf course folks are catching up on some of the damage that was done over the winter. And so things are starting to look better out in those areas. We're also working our way through addressing vacancies. And so over the next month or so, month and a half, I'm hoping that we start getting some of those filled because that will also be helpful, particularly in maintenance. And I don't want to talk a lot about some of those until we actually have them filled, but I also wanted to thank Linda for bringing the fees issues forward, especially around the web, the lack of connection to what we've got on our website. So that is something I've talked about with a couple of people on the board about the need to update our website because there's a number of issues around it, not just the fees issues. And so we're going to be doing that, working not just to update the fees, but update the website overall. But that's going to be a bit of a process. I'm not sure exactly what the time frame is going to be for that yet. And as we go through that, we'll also work on getting some things scheduled to happen more regularly so that we do have, the fees aren't going to be sitting out there for a couple of years. And then we'll also work, I'm also going to be working with the board to try to figure out how to get the adoption of fees aligned with the needs of, for example, the golf course or the marina or whomever has fees under their purview. But we will get that addressed. And the other thing is I'll check into what's going on with the marina, because I was unaware of the marina fees were being increased also. So Brian is out of town, but I will talk to him when he gets back, because right now he's kind of overseeing some of those areas and find out what he's aware of, and we'll figure out what's going on. I will say, with regards to having a fee for a waiting list in a slip, I have seen that done elsewhere. And usually when it's done, it's because people, if there's no fee, then people don't attach value to it. So they sign up for it, and it slows down the process for people that are actively looking for a slip, because we have to go through that process, try to get people to respond. And that can take sometimes a couple of weeks or more. And then depending on what their response is, it can drag on from there. And so part of the idea of having, a $30 per year fee feels pretty modest to me. It probably about matches what our costs are to manage a wait list like that. It just keeps people from doing it just because, well, why not? It's free and I might have a vote someday. Which is not to say that we should do it or we shouldn't do it. I'm just saying, I've been exposed to mortgages elsewhere down in the Seattle area and the like, where they have fees, and that's part of the logic that they use. And so I think that's something for the board to consider. At the end of the day, it's up to you guys to make the policy. But I will say that this caught me unaware that we've established some fees and we've increased some fees without either board approval and without my direction. I don't know where the direction came from. So we are going to, and it might have been from a past GM. I don't know where it came from, but anyway, we'll check into it and we'll figure out what's going on and report back to the board. And with that, there's some other things that are coming up in a later session, but I don't really think I want to talk about them publicly. So if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer anything you've got.
Nope. All right, we'll move on to new business then. So we have a
Thanks, Dan.
Yep. Thank you. We'll move on to, we got a few committees that we're getting up and running here for the year. So we have member approvals. So I'll pass over to Kim for Finance Committee.
Thank you, AJ. So I would like to bring to the board, I'd like to nominate 5 people for the Finance Committee. Those members' names are Callie Cass, Jacob Galfano, Jean Meixner, Jessica Staton, and Richard Waltke.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. That passes unanimously.
Thank you, board.
Thank you, Kim. We appreciate everyone making the commitment to serve on the Finance Committee. I'll move it over to Josh for the Communications Committee, and we can have discussion about board members who'd like to participate, as well as committee member approvals.
Yeah, so we have another open board seat on the Communications Committee, and I've had Sandy email with interest of that, and I would love to nominate her for the second chair of the Communications Committee. Can I get a second up in here?
Second.
Jeez.
We were thinking about it.
Any objections to Sandy?
No.
All right. Hearing none, I think that's approved.
And
I would like to be on the communications committee too, if you have some space, Josh.
can we have multiple board members? If so, I'm totally cool with that.
I think so.
Well, so hold on. Jaime is already on document review, long range planning, and communications.
It's a lot.
So
Do you want to take
several
on
of
all
us
that,
got
Jaime?
bumped off of long range planning.
Well,
Because
I think there can only be two of us on long range planning, and that's already AJ and myself.
Well, we had talked about having Tammy sit as a community member if we weren't filling it all completely.
I think Taimi can probably tell us all her capacity of being on committee. So I think that's up to her.
I mean, if I get overwhelmed, I'll figure it out. But so far, it hasn't been too overwhelming. And communications was really one of the things that I mostly wanted to do. So
yeah. So I guess, how do we do it from this part if we already have a chair?
Oh, we have to have like our charters typically. Our charters have like a minimum of 2 board directors. You know, with an ad hoc committee, I don't see any reason why additional board members couldn't participate if they would like to.
No, I don't mean that. I just mean like for the process. Do I nominate Taimi for?
Oh, I think any of us
is
can,
that a
really
member approval at this point? That's what I'm saying. Where's the Robert Rules expert, Nancy?
I could be on there as a community member. I mean, you know, as a resident member, it's not a big deal. It just kind of, communication is kind of where.
You're being put in there, Taimi. I'm sorry, I'm making this all too convoluted. I'm just wondering what I need to do here. Do I need to say, I nominate Taimi for?
What does your charter say? Do you have a charter for this
Not
year?
currently. I'm working.
We haven't approved a charter yet.
Then you don't nominate anyway, buddy, because you don't exist. Sorry.
That even makes it more complicated.
well, there you go. Well, I'd like to be on long range planning because it does exist.
Long range planning exists because it's a committee of the board. The only one on that list was communications. The only ad hoc on that list is communications. And sorry, Josh.
You know, I asked about this, but we can back it up and we can reconvene this at the next meeting.
Yeah, we can bring a charter to the next meeting and do it all at once. I think that's perfectly fine too.
And you can spell out in your charter any rules you want about who can join.
I'm just asking about the process. So I don't care who's on the committee, to be honest with you. I'm just asking about the process because I don't want to get tagged later on by the Robert's Rules police.
It's all good because you don't exist.
That's how I've treated my whole life.
Oh,
that was a harsh way to phrase that.
I know Dan loved that joke. It's all right. We'll reconvene this. Sorry, Sandy.
Well, we can bring some forward at the next meeting to have it all squared away.
I'm going to make a suggestion because I don't know if this needs to be a motion. So we're having a document review committee meeting, but the charters all have to be updated, even if we work off of last year, because the law changed and it actually impacts committees. So we need to make sure that those parameters are reflected in the charters. So do we need a motion for the document review to do a base charter like update?
Sure, if you guys can have something to us for the next board meeting so that we can move Josh's committee forward at a minimum.
Yeah, we can do
that.
I
feel like my dreams were crushed, like I had corrugated metal roof or something.
Oh. We can do it. We can get
Sorry,
it done.
Josh, that's my bad. I forgot about the charter too. Should have reminded us all.
I wasn't going to bring it up until you dropped it in my lap.
No, let's do it right. Thank you.
So do we need a motion to move it to the other committee and then bring it back?
Yes, please.
I'll let AJ do it.
Okay, we'll make a motion to have document review provide us a base charter for use in ad hoc committees for the next meeting.
Second.
Oh.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes. All right, moving to long range planning committee. I just have one person to nominate. I'd like to make a motion to appoint Adam Tullis to the long range planning committee.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? All right.
Aye. I'm sorry, I was muted. Aye. Oh, never mind. Oh, there's a problem though. I apologize. I should have pointed. I didn't realize you were nominating him tonight.
Oh, I'll move on to.
Okay.
I'll move on to capital requests then. The first one on the agenda is the golf course hole 8 bridge replacement. So this capital request, P&W has been working with Chinook Engineering, which is a structural engineering firm, to provide some options for bridge replacements for the golf course bridge. I provided a capital memo with kind of all the details. Sorry, just trying to get my thing up here. Basically, as I've reported prior in my flooding reports, the bridge failed during the November floods. Basically, the creek bank eroded around the abutments, and the southernmost abutment failed completely and shifted and basically detached the entire bridge. I think there's some pictures in there maybe, or they were in the report at the very least. And so basically the Chinook Engineering has done, along with P&W, has done a couple different alternatives that they looked at for how best to replace that bridge in the most cost-effective manner. And basically, there's a couple issues at play. Materials for bridges are in a bit of a short supply, and they some of the options that we have to choose from between different types of bridges, and basically the engineers looked at the different types that they looked at were like a rail car bridge, which basically uses like an old rail car that spans the creek and provides and then there'd be planks put on top of that. Otherwise, they looked at sourcing steel I-beams that would span the creek with then, wood slats, placed on top, and railings and everything like that, what's referred to as kind of a stick-built bridge. And then they also looked into basically a prefab bridge through Contact Engineering Solutions. And that is the recommendation that P&W and Chinook Engineering are bringing forward. If you look, there is the Chinook basically provided 3 different cost estimates that I have in the packet. The first one is the one that they're recommending, and then it's followed up with the quote from Contact on that prefab bridge. And then the other two are after the Contact solution. So you will notice that the prefab bridge is the most expensive option, but it does provide us with the quickest means of being able to replace that bridge, which has been out now for almost 4 months, 3-4 months. And the other bridge materials, like sourcing I-beams or sourcing a rail car bridge, are anywhere from like 1.5 to 3 months lead time to get those materials on site. And the costs are all relatively comparable. We're talking, let's see, it's like less than $10,000 or roughly $10,000 difference between the various options. And so that's kind of a big driver, is the ability to get the bridge here in an expedited manner and replaced. And the bridge that P&W is recommending with Chinook is like an HL 93 rated, so it's actually the strongest bridge out of the 3 options. It provides it exceeds any requirements structurally for equipment that crosses the bridge, because the golf course staff uses it to bring their mowers and stuff across. Obviously, golf carts are walking or driving across it as well, and golfers who are just walking are going across it. So yeah, I guess that's kind of the gist of it. Most of the information is there. We have had some conversations with Brian about some ways to help support the funding of the bridge. And those have revolved around like maybe hosting a tournament to generate some proceeds that could be used to offset some of these capital costs that we might produce. And he seemed pretty open to that idea, as well as looking at maybe some ways the operational budget could support the capital project as well. We haven't materialized any of that as of this point, and those certainly could be used to offset the capital funds, as we put those plans in process and make them actually happen. So yeah. Sam?
I got 2 questions. The span of that, are we allowing for extra room for another 100-year flood and more, so that we don't have that issue again? And the second one is, will it hold a fire truck? Because that would be something that it would be great to have it in case something was to happen and we needed to run a fire truck through some areas. That's about the biggest, heaviest thing that we could be running through there, besides some sort of crane, but we wouldn't be doing that so much out there. But fire truck for sure.
So the Contact bridge is HL 93 rated, which means a semi could drive across it. That's like the highest traffic loading. That's a bridge that's capable of supporting I-5 level traffic, basically. So yeah, that wouldn't be an issue with this one. The other options, not totally sure, to be honest. I would have to get more information from P&W and Chinook, because I don't know that is.
The rail car will hold just the equipment. It'll take like light utility vehicles but it's not rated like what you're talking about, where the other one will take heavy traffic, semi trucks, it'll take a fire truck, an ambulance, and it is a longer span. That answers your question about that too, Sam. But yeah, I actually asked that question. That's why I know it, because I asked the same thing. But what the other one is more for a light utility bridge, and so no, it will not take the rail car will not take a fire truck.
And I'm not 100% sure on the steel stringer bridge. That would be largely dependent upon those size of those stringers and how much weight they can hold. Go ahead.
Then the bigger the stringer, the higher you got to jack it up to clear the creek bed. I mean, if the beams get deeper, so that's the clearance for the creek bottom would come into play. The heavier they are, the bigger they are, and then you start losing headroom.
Yeah, I mean, the concrete foundations will set that elevation, so regardless of the size, that bottom elevation stays consistent. They would just get higher if the beams got taller, basically.
So then you'd be considering a approach hill if they got taller. And so if the bottom stays the same and the top grows higher, then you've got to have a ramp up to it.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to have to be, regardless of what bridge you put in place, you're going to have to redo the approaches to the bridge for sure, so that it all is flush, and so we don't have bridges similar to like the one on Gate 9 in Polo Park, where it's like the bridge sits down in a hole like that. But yeah, basically, yeah, we're not looking at a super cheap replacement of the bridge. Obviously bridges are, are serious structures. So yeah, the total estimated project is almost 3.25 or 325,000, just under. So yeah. You got more questions, Sam?
Just one random thought, that something like that out in that area, if we were to have a problem with the dam, Lake Louise, and we had to drive around, it'd be nice to be sure we have a route that also would be handy to possibly utilize if that would help over there. But I think that's out of reach.
That's all downstream
for helping with that, but
that bridge is all downstream of the dam. Trying to think if there's anything else to mention. I don't really think so. Obviously, there's some costs associated with construction oversight. The design will have to be finished still, and permitting completed then. Basically, in order for P&W and Chinook to move forward, they need to know, what option we want to move forward with. So that's pretty much where this capital request is at. So basically, part of the design and permitting costs have been spent already. And then we're moving in order to continue the project forward and do the permitting, which we have gotten verbal approval from Fish and Wildlife that they would do an expedited permit on this for us, which is about a 2-week time frame. And I believe the bridge is located in Colorado, so it will have to be shipped up here. And yeah. And
So
then
AJ, there's a time, there's timing on these projects? You have to be done within a certain amount of time?
no, I mean, the issue right now is that's a, you know, fairly major thoroughfare for the golf course. This is what I wanted to say. And in discussions with Brian right now, they're getting around it by diverting people around basically through the driving range, which is working okay at the moment because the golf course hasn't exactly been super busy since this happened with all the snow and the rain and that type of stuff. But Brian said it will become an issue, you know, as we move into, you know, nice golfing weather, which we've certainly seen some pretty nice days happen in the last few weeks. So that's partly why the contact solution is being recommended as well, because it'll expedite that process. Whereas the other bridges we're looking at, you know, about 2 months to even potentially get the materials we need on site to do the construction. So with this method, we would procure the bridge immediately after the board approves it. P&W will execute that action with contact to get that bridge up here. So there would just be the time to ship it, which is, you know, probably a week or so, maybe even less. And then, you know, in that time frame, they would also be working on getting the permits then that we need and completing the design and getting out to bid. So it'll kind of give about a 2-week window to get all that wrapped up and bid it. And then, you know,
when would this be ready? Do you know, have an estimated when it would be ready?
Well, you're probably, you know, if we approve something tonight, you're looking at, you know, Tyler, you know, hopefully either, you know, maybe tomorrow or early next week, they can get the permits in, which sets about a 2-week time frame. During that same amount of time, they can get the bid package ready to go out to contractors. They're going to need that permit first, you know, before they totally ship it out to contractors. And that bridge can be getting shipped here during that 2-week time frame. You know, you're looking at normally 2 weeks or so to bid a project. You know, so we would be obligating money to be able to bid the project, and then we bring it back once the bids come in. It'll come back before the board, you know, for awarding a contract to the lowest bidder. You know, and ideally the engineer's estimate that, you know, and the money that we'd be obligating tonight would cover, you know, the lowest bid. You know, we wouldn't need to add any additional funds, but depending upon the bids, you know, that dictates a bit what the contractors bid. So
thank you.
You know, and Tyler did a pretty good job with the Polo Park culvert of getting, I think we had 5 bids on that job that we approved at the last board meeting. So yeah, so all in all, I'd say, you know, you're probably looking at about a month to have a contractor on board, you know, and then that construction, I'm not 100% sure what the working days estimate would be on that, but I would imagine, you know, it's roughly, you know, about a month or so maybe to get it all built. Probably less with the prefab bridge option because they don't have to build the bridge. They just have to set it in place. And then like Sam pointed out, you know, you got to rebuild the approaches to the bridge. So you got a smooth transition there from the asphalt cart path to the bridge. And then additional work will have to happen on this in the summertime. At the moment, they'll just be placing basically riprap on the creek bank to protect the bank from further erosion. But then this summer we'll have to come back, remove that riprap. Well, this is what we're being told to anticipate in our preliminary talks with Fish and Wildlife on the permit, that they would then require us to come back out, tear out that riprap, rebuild that slope appropriately, and probably put in like some large woody debris and slope protection, with like native plants, and mitigate the impacts we're having to the creek itself. And I believe all that is included in the estimates. Yeah, channel work, HPA required is included in these costs. So there will be like a suspension of working days, and then it'll be picked back up with that same contractor, in the summer when the fish window opens, so that you can do in water work. Sam?
So it sounds like we're weighing the cost of a good bridge that can be done the quickest versus golf losses the longer we take to get anything done, which could really start to, and we could also be turning off golfers when we need to be lighting them up so that they're coming out here loving our course. So we don't want to be turning them away for an unspecified period of time. So that's what I'm throwing out here. It's like, well, we're kind of weighing things here versus expediting something and getting a good quality bridge versus trying to save money, but actually could cost us dearly all through the summer.
Yeah, pretty much you're looking at, about 10 grand extra to, like you said, get the higher quality bridge, expedite the process, versus, how much golf revenue could be jeopardized. And then Brian is, discussing and working with us on ways we could reduce the amount of money that's being obligated tonight. And so we can work with him and Dan to continue those conversations, and then we can have Brian bring, a proposal back before the board, on what that would look like, whether, he can host a golf tournament to try to make some money, and, try to maybe get some donations or something, things like that. To help support these costs and lower this amount. At this point, we would obligate the full amount. And if we, once we work with Brian and develop those plans and generate that actual money, we can bring that back before the board to offset costs after the fact, basically. Sam?
Would there be any possibility of recouping some costs from flood damage? Something that I know it's a golf course and that's not high on the list, but it is something that makes our community function. And if it does hold the fire truck, by golly, I would throw that in there. I'm just curious if there's a way to help get any of that money also.
Yeah, we're going to be submitting we're still working with the county and discussing things with FEMA to try to see if we can get FEMA support for not just this project, but Southern Court, the Polo Park replacement work that we did, and any other damage that we sustained from the November flooding event that was, declared an emergency by both the governor and the president. So we don't know that for sure. And typically with this stuff, you end up paying, you're trying to replace this stuff quicker than the feds get you money. Usually there's, all the paperwork and red tape you got to jump through for the feds to give you money. So, usually you're basically getting reimbursed by the feds for the money that you've spent to deal with the damage. Usually you don't get it up front. That's same thing happens at the county for me. I have a number of emergency projects where we've already spent, the money and are looking to recoup it through either the state or the feds. And yeah, this would come out of our SURF account. It's not really part of our roadway network. And so that's what's being proposed. So I guess not seeing a whole lot of other questions at the moment. So I'll make the motion that the board of directors approve the allocation of $323,177.11 from the SURF account for costs associated with the golf course hole 8 bridge replacement project.
Second.
Does anybody have any further discussion on it?
Just to be clear, that is the higher expenditure bridge. That's what we're going with for sure, right?
That is the higher expenditure bridge that the engineers are recommending at this point.
We make, the golf course is so important. I think that's the way to go for sure.
All right. Well, I will call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. That passes unanimously.
Can a Brinks truck roll over it?
How much money do you have to move?
Amazon offers free shipping if we wanted to order the bridge through them.
Oh,
I know the idea of delivering a bridge is so great. At least we know the bridge can hold itself, right?
It does come in 2 pieces that they like. I think I can't remember. I think it's in there. They weld them together or whatever on site. All right, moving on to the next capital request. This is for work associated with the clubhouse remediation and some assessments that P&W is recommending we do, just to make sure we're, dealing with some of these systems while we have, extensive work happening. So there's a number of different things included in this. Basically, as we've discussed at previous board meetings, there was an ongoing and neglected leak resulting from or coming from basically the dish pit area in the kitchen that did extensive damage to both the kitchen area, the walls in the kitchen area, and the area, like basically the false ceiling and some of the light fixtures and things like that below that area. And damage is spread, all the way into like the accounting offices as well. So basically most of the details are there. I provided when we found out about the leak, we worked with staff to put some temporary measures in place, and we were working with both Brian and El Agave to try to determine the best time frame to move forward with these repairs. And that was basically settled on the beginning of December, that work happening, which we, announced, I think initially at the AGM. And I think, initially we brought in the company EnviroTest to do some testing to make sure it was safe for both Sun Valley employees, the restaurant employees, and just the general public and membership coming into the building to make sure we didn't have any health hazards related to that. And that report is included in the materials. But then basically it came back that, it was fine and adequate, until we until we started doing some of the repairs to have people continue to utilize the space. Some of the closures that have been experienced in the building and the admin office and things have resulted from the need to have people out during certain portions of this remediation work. It wasn't initially known, but as Service Master came in and started to do some of the remediation work, it was discovered that there was asbestos in the walls surrounding the dish pit. And so there had to be some abatement done to deal with that. And so while all that was going on, we had to have people out of the building. And so, yeah, the cost for Enviro Test to do that work, which was recommended to us, by Service Master, that we have that company come in and do that testing. That whole report is included in there. And then the Service Master invoice is included in the packet of materials as well. And then at one point in time, right before Service Master was coming in, the restaurant staff were cleaning the kitchen area kind of in preparation for this. And there was some fumes from that cleaning products that created some illness and nausea symptoms with a number of our staff members in our admin office. That resulted in a number of them leaving during the middle of the day to go home. And we closed down that office, and immediately, again, we worked with Service Master to determine who would be the best person to come in. And that was Rose Environmental came in to do, I forget what it was called exactly now. It's like a rapid air quality testing company. And they came in basically the next day. And they tested the air, and there was no further concern. So it was really just a product of, some of the cleaning that had to be done before Service Master came in. And those costs are included in there. These are all, and then on top of that, as a result of having a bunch of our components and stuff open, we've had, a lot of this is caused by, leaking plumbing issues, that type of thing. Leaking floors, basically all the grout was missing in the kitchen around all the tiles. That was not maintained by El Agave through the course of using the space. And so that created the ability for water to basically just seep in between the tiles. And then basically P&W is recommending that we do a property condition assessment of kind of the major systems, your HVAC, your plumbing, your electrical, that type of stuff. While we're doing major reconstruction work, it makes sense to gain economy of scale and make sure we address those issues in a more holistic manner, so that we don't do all this work, rebuild things and then run into a situation where all of a sudden something else is failing and we're tearing out more walls and things like that. And they got three bids for that. And their P&W's recommendation is to move forward with the Northwest Building Inspector's proposal. And then there's some time in there for P&W to manage that firm, and be there to walk through the building with them and assess it, and make sure we have someone on site to oversee and gather any information. And then once this is completed, then we'll have to have contractors in to bid on rebuilding the space, basically. And then that work will come back before the board before we do that. Sam?
Is the sprinkling system up and in good shape right now?
Yes, and it was just checked. Dan just had it checked this past week, right, Dan? The Clubhouse sprinkler system. So the Clubhouse sprinkler system, they check it once a year, and so they were just out like a week and a half ago and checked that, and everything checked out fine.
Yeah, I believe that's a fire marshal inspection that happens. Well, it's a company that through like the fire marshal's office, basically. They come out and check all those fire safety systems. Yeah, go ahead, Sam.
Is that something we're going to be looking at too, to make sure that if it needed to be upgraded, that while we have things open, we can do that?
It doesn't need to be upgraded. It's in compliance with what we need to do. But yeah, we will evaluate, and we did have money in our capital budget. We already know that one of the HVAC systems is, in there is near its useful or near the end of its useful life cycle. So I fully expect, us to address that with this project when we go to do the rebuilding work. But the main things at this point are due to a full evaluation of the plumbing system and the electrical system to make sure we don't need any extensive work there, so that we're not rebuilding something and then, 3 years from now, a new board is, doing electrical work or something. Try to develop a comprehensive plan for fixing anything that needs to be fixed now. Go ahead, Sam.
Is all of that equipment in the kitchen, all of the stainless steel sinks, countertops, and the hood systems, is that all Sudden Valley's? And are we going to just reinstall and clean it all up and put it back in the same configuration?
Yeah, that is all the kitchen equipment, I believe, for the most part, is Sudden Valley's. The freezers, the hoods, the sinks, and those like permanent fixtures.
I believe some of the new fryers are too. Those were recent.
I think, ideally, yeah, that would. I think at this point, the tentative plan would be to kind of rebuild the space back to what it is, unless the building inspection comes back with other significant damage that hasn't been, discovered yet by the remediation experts, because, they're only looking at basically the water damage, right? So they're tearing out where water damage is. And there's, for the last couple weeks, there's, a plethora of giant fans in there, drying things out. If you look at the last issue of the Views, there's a few pictures in there of the work that was being done. And I think you can see, there's also of the tear out work that's happened. And then, in some of the reports included in the agenda packet tonight, there's some pictures, of what things look like beforehand. So yeah, it's kind of a iterative process at this point, but there'll be, this evaluation will be done. We'll bring that, we'll share that with the board once we have that evaluation completed. And then we'll work with P&W to determine the next steps of contractors rebuilding and what all needs to be done in that regard. Once we've finished assessing the damage. Right now we have a pretty good handle on the water damage. We just want to make sure there's nothing else wrong with the other systems. And then, yeah, The plan is for this to come out of the UDR account. This is kind of, these expenses were, as I alluded to in the memo, were, you know, we've covered them out of ops initially, but those were not budgeted for our ops budget for this year. So the plan would be to cover them out of UDR, and then likely whatever rebuilding work needs to be done, that would come out of our SURF account, which is used for those major repairs and replacements of our facilities. Does anybody have any other questions?
I just have a question of why did you choose UDR for this versus SURF?
It was kind of a maintenance function to some extent.
Okay.
You know, it was, you know, and talking through it with Joel, our accounting manager, a bit, that was kind of what we decided was the best place for the funds to come out of initially, for this kind of, you know, smaller dollar amount. I envision that the capital repairs, you know, to rebuild things will be higher than this. That's a given, I think, especially with the prices of building materials these days.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
All right, well, I'll move that the board of directors approve the allocation of $26,683.33 from the UDR account for costs associated with the clubhouse remediation and assessment project.
Second.
Does anybody else have any other discussion on that? All right, we'll call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. All right, so moving forward, I have a third capital request, which I did send to you all around 4 o'clock today, which I do apologize for that. But you know, P&W's got me the proposal yesterday, and I was working on getting it together. And you know, they feel it's prudent that we get things moving in order to ensure that we can get a major road project taken care of this year. So what I'm going to do is share my screen real quick with everyone. I know some of you said you haven't had a complete chance to review it all, but basically there's a number of things here. So the request is basically a preliminary request to do some design and some negotiating with Whatcom County permitting regarding stormwater treatment. So there's a couple things going on. Spring Road is a project that was initiated under Joe Akla, previous general manager. There was some kind of cursory review of that road done by staff and P&W a number of years ago, I think in like either late 19 or early 2020. And then under our interim general manager, Glenn, he started to move the project forward with P&W, and that money, he did that through our on-call engineering money that was approved by last year's board in February. And oops, sorry, not too far. Basically, so Spring Road is a gravel road. It's right in gate 3, right next to the mailbox clusters there. And it's having some erosion and drainage issues that are impacting the road and property owners. And that it's been on our capital plan for a number of years, I believe, I think going back to 2019. So when Glenn moved the project forward under that on-call engineering, that was about, I think there ended up being about 15 grand spent, a little bit more. And basically what they did was they did a complete site survey of the roadway, and put together a preliminary 30% design of Spring Road, and then impact design did some determinations and some stormwater calculations to determine what the potential stormwater treatment capacity is at that location. And so basically paving Spring Road is going to trigger the need for stormwater treatment to occur, because we will be adding more than 1,500 square feet of impervious surfaces. But there's additional capacity with water that currently flows through that area that's larger than just the area that Spring Road is going to encompass. So more water, basically more water is flowing through that area than just the water that's running off the gravel road in the area that's going to be paved. And so in this initial determination of getting to 30% design, impacts determined that there's basically additional stormwater treatment capacity available at this location, which is a pretty big deal, and it's important for multiple reasons. One of which is in 2017, we did a roadway project on Marigold Drive there through where the dam is, basically. And stormwater treatment was required as a part of that project, but it wasn't done. And basically there was a design put together for it, but it wasn't actually feasible, is my understanding. And then the general manager at that time and Wilson Engineering, they ended up going to the hearing examiner to try to appeal the decision that we had to do that stormwater treatment. And they got denied. Basically, the deal is when you have to dig up the roadway and you touch the subgrade of the road, so the gravel aggregate underneath the road that supports the asphalt, once you start getting into that layer, you now trigger the need to do stormwater treatment because we're within the Lake Whatcom watershed. And those are basically the rules that are codified in Whatcom County's code and ordinances. And so as a result of losing that appeal and not doing the work with the project, basically Whatcom County agreed to let us do offsite treatment, which basically means instead of doing treatment within the project limits of the road that we worked on, we're going to do it somewhere else where there's adequate space and ability to do so. And they gave us a number of years to do it. And I believe Joe came on like the same year we were supposed to have it done, or the year, like right during the year before. And basically he talked to the county and they gave him like a little bit of extra grace since he was a new general manager to figure out the plan and put it together. But what was identified by Wilson and the previous general managers was doing that treatment at the clubhouse, the lower golf course parking lot, basically. And that project was identified by Wilson Engineering, and those that's been sitting in our capital planning documents. You can go back to the previous year's budgets, going back a number of years, and it's been in there. The current estimated costs that we had carried over into this year's budget were totaling $637,000 to do that work for both design and construct. That includes design and construction. And so collaborating with PNW on this and Impact Design and doing the Spring Road project, it was identified that there was additional treatment capacity where we would be able to do offsite mitigation at the Spring Road location. And we'd be able to cover the treatment that Whatcom County Planning Department is requiring of us, for this previous road project that we did. We'd be able to cover the treatment that we have to do for the Spring Road project. And then it's anticipated that there is actually additional capacity there for additional roadways that need to basically tear up the road and rebuild it. Same thing as that 2017 project. We're getting into that road subgrade has failed because the asphalt was let go for too long of a period of time, and water intrusion just kept getting into that subgrade and caused failure. And basically, P&W and Impact have basically determined that, through the Spring Road project, which has an engineer's estimate of about $166,000, they can accomplish the Spring Road project and the mitigation we have to do required by Whatcom County that previously was being totaled at $637,000. So there's very significant cost savings associated with moving towards, doing that treatment at Spring Road as opposed to that lower golf course parking lot. Basically at this point in time, there is a need for additional funds and approval from the board to move that project towards completing the design and putting it out to and getting it ready to put out to bid and bring it back to the board for approval for final construction costs. And there's a couple different moving parts with this. So because there's believed to be additional capacity at Spring Road on top of the 2017 mitigation we have to do and the Spring Road mitigation we have to do, we believe we can do some additional road rehabilitation projects, which two roads that have been identified at this point in time are Cascade Lane and Green Hill Road. Cascade Lane was originally in 2019 scheduled to be done in the micro seal effort that happened there. There was basically in all the different gates, there was like some of the main roads were micro sealed, and Cascade Lane was originally bid as one of those roadways that was going to be micro sealed. However, as after that got put out to bid and the contractor and P&W ended up doing a walkthrough, it was determined that essentially that road had too many issues. The surface was not adequate to put down the micro seal, basically, and too much of it was going to need to be rebuilt, and it couldn't be done in a time frame to not delay the micro seal project. And so they pulled Cascade Lane from that. And so basically Cascade Lane and Green Hill Road have some various issues on them where we are going to have to rip up. Basically, it's not the entire length of either of these roads, but portions of these roads are going to need to be ripped up entirely and rebuilt. And then other portions are just going to need to be maybe grinded down and an overlay patch put in. And then, we could look at when we clean up those problem areas, we could look at maybe micro sealing, over the entire length of the roadway once we repair the failed areas, because at that point in time you'd be able to lay that product down. And so they do, P&W and Impact Design have to negotiate how much treatment capacity Whatcom County is going to allow us to utilize at the Spring Road location. So basically part of this funding is for them to do that. And that'll be basically the next step, is to go to Whatcom County make that determination. Once we know exactly how much treatment capacity Whatcom County will allow us to utilize at Spring Road, then we can incorporate Cascade Lane and Green Hill. And the hope is, and PNW, and talking with Tyler, he believes that, you know, as long as Whatcom County will agree with the stormwater calculations that impact design is put together, he believes there's adequate capacity there to cover both those roads and potentially some additional roadways where we have to get into the subgrade as well. And so basically, you know, at this point in time, we're looking to get funds, and it's about $30,000 to negotiate that with Whatcom County, complete the design, the final design for paving Spring Road and installing those treatment to the maximum capacity that will be allowed to by Whatcom County. And then that will also provide money for designing Cascade Lane and Green Hill Road and doing those major road repairs. And then if we can get significantly more roadway rebuilt on top of both of those roads, you know, we may have to have PNW put together another recommendation and then bring it back for the board to maybe add some money to do some additional design work to get a large scale road project done, basically. And, you know, basically, they're also included in this pot of money, this $30,000 is, so last year, the board approved money to be done for PNW. It was about $5,000 or so to drive all the roads and evaluate all the roads for pothole damage, delamination, which is basically like, it's not really a pothole. It's like you get widespread of the like wearing course, the very top layer of asphalt just peeling off in chunks. So it doesn't create that like divot like a pothole does. It creates like this kind of widespread area where the pavement gets all chunky and starts to fall apart. And so they did a bunch of that work, and we were moving forward with it. And then we didn't end up doing the work. We were going to do it, and Glenn was kind of leading the management of that project, and he left at the same time we we're getting ready to move that forward. And so there's a little bit of money for PNW to go back, reevaluate those areas that he's already identified and make sure none of them have gotten worse, because he basically has to dimension out all of these potholes, because they'll basically come in, they'll cut out a section of pavement, and then they'll come back in and basically lay a patch of asphalt down. And that work will also be included in the final construction package when it comes back before the board. But that work isn't going to trigger any stormwater requirements of it, is what PNW's told me. So it's just pothole repairs, delam, which would basically just, we'd come in and we'd grind down the asphalt surface to make a level surface, and then come back in and do an overlay to fill that grinded area out. So we're not getting into the actual road subgrade with any of those issues. And so that would all be included. And so basically this is just some preliminary design money that will allow us to put together a package for the board to approve for a major road reconstruction project. You know, and I think we have budgeted for our capital road projects somewhere in the neighborhood of, $750,000, I believe, for this year. So we're, right now we have about 166,000 identified for sure. And that's a 30% engineer's estimate. So it is subject to change a little bit. I wouldn't expect it to necessarily drastically change. But it'll probably be adjusted a little bit, especially as we move, we continue to see prices go up and stuff with some of these building materials. But yeah, this money, as just kind of a recap, because I feel like I'm rambling quite a bit right now. The money would provide the funds needed to complete the Spring Road design and the stormwater treatment design, negotiate with Whatcom County how large of a stormwater treatment system we can put in to cover additional roadways that we need to get into the subgrade. And the reason why we're looking at offsite mitigate, like Cascade Lane, if you've ever driven on, it's a steep road. There's no practical, and it's narrow. There's no practical space to put stormwater treatment out on that road. And so that's why you're looking at offsite mitigation. And this is likely a reality with a number of our roads, that we won't have the space to do the treatment within the project limits, which is typically what you would see happen. And then part of that money then is also to further evaluate the conditions that have already been identified, make sure there's no new potholes that have come. Anytime you get these big snow events, new potholes tend to materialize from plowing efforts. Anyone who drives Lake Louise Road regularly can attest to that, along with all the old pothole cold patches being pulled right out of the holes and having to be replaced, which I did notice Whatcom County did recently on that road. So basically, you can see right now there's still some to be determined for the final project, but we're looking to obligate the beginning portion of this project so that we can put together a large scale comprehensive road rehabilitation project for a number of areas. And the request right now is at $30,000, and this would come out of our road budget. There's a number of documents in the capital request, P&W's report for completing the Spring Road and the numbers that come for this initial request. And they got, impacts proposal is in here for finalizing the design on Spring Road, negotiating with Whatcom County, if we are allowed to through Whatcom County, which, we are anticipating that they'll work with us on this, hopefully, doing the design for Cascade Lane and Green Hill as well. I've included, and P&W's got their cost estimate in there as well. And then, you have, this is the Spring Road cost estimate from Impact Design, showing the 166 to do the stormwater treatment. That might go up a little bit, as we finalize the design and potentially increase the size of the stormwater treatment system. But it shouldn't be too significant. And then it's going to be hard to see because these pages are much bigger, but the plan sets in here for Spring Road and like the 30% design of the plan set at this point, and you're looking at, this is the area that'd be paved. Here's your stormwater treatment facilities right in there, and they'll connect down into Sun Valley Drive, and some of that water is being diverted to increase the amount of capacity of water that can be treated so that we can do offsite mitigation. It is a pretty steep area to divert that water into our treatment system, but they'll make the appropriate designs for that. And this is your stormwater calculation sheets. There's a lot of extra notes and stuff, but this table right here shows the extra capacity that's available at this location that we'll need to get Whatcom County's buy off on. And then those are the main documents for the initial request. And then I included a bunch of documents kind of for your guys' reference in here that are from previous stuff. So like I said, Glenn spent some of the on-call engineering money from last year to get Spring Road to the point where it is now. And this is, the documents in here are, impact design's proposal to do that work. And then the invoices to show the actual costs of what was, because it was the actual cost, I think, ended up being just a little bit more than what the proposal estimated. There's documentation in here on the Whatcom County's required stormwater treatment. So this is Wilson's original capital project narrative for the lower clubhouse parking lot. And basically the main thing you'll see, this is small, but when you come down here to the bottom, this is their cost estimate for that mitigation that they were recommending to cover that 2017 road project. And this is all in 2018 dollars. So obviously inflation and escalation has caused that cost to go up, which is, I mentioned it was like 600 and some thousand estimated at this point, and that's how you go from 463 in 2018 to what it is now. And you can kind of see why it pays to get these things done, when they're ready to be built, as opposed to waiting. And then this is just our capital project or capital budget from our budget for this year. And I highlighted, that lower clubhouse parking lot and how I got to the 600 some thousand. And then this is just some quick information on the micro seal, so this is the original proposal that shows Cascade Lane being in there. And then this is what ended up being pushed out to the community as they were kind of doing announcements on the projects. You can search like micro seal on our website and you'll find an announcement with this map on there, but you can see that Cascade Lane is no longer on there, and then here's the correspondence between Intermountain Slurry Seal, which was the contractor we hired to do that work, and P&W basically telling them that, Sudden Valley is saying, we're removing Cascade Lane from that project due to, and the emails basically outlines here due to the large amount of repairs that would need to be done before the micro surfacing could be laid on it. And then this is just a proposal that the board approved Tyler and P&W to do about $5,000 to do a pothole assessment and road repair assessment. And this is his proposal that came back to Glenn, that we just did not have the time to execute at last year. With the work window and the watershed. And, in here, you'll see this was his proposal then, so you can see some of the anticipated costs that might be added to the Spring Road costs to do some of this work. And then there's a whole spreadsheet where he's identified, a number of roads that have potholes. The grind is basically where delamination has occurred. All this will kind of come back. Tyler will basically update this spreadsheet, add anything to it. There's also some areas that he identified that need further review and probably engineers to assist us with how to deal with those. And those are where you're getting into some of these major areas like Cascade Lane, where we're going to have to rebuild those road sections essentially. And so, yeah, I think I've rambled enough at this point. I do apologize for getting this to you guys kind of at the last minute, but yeah, Tyler wanted to be able to get this thing going so we didn't have to wait 2 weeks to start talking with Whatcom County, because you just never know how long the planning department's going to take to deal with you. They typically have a backlog and nobody gets to jump the line usually. So does anybody have any questions, Nancy?
This isn't really about Spring Road, but is the county putting off the Marigold project for a year because they're busy, or do they intend to do it this year?
So, okay. So the Marigold project I'm talking about has nothing to do with the
I know.
Marigold project that I don't believe they're putting it off. I believe it's still moving forward, last that I had heard.
I did work on it a couple of weeks ago.
They just did some potholing work out here to confirm utility locations, because that's always a bit of a mystery in Sudden Valley. You know, and I believe the plan is still to move forward and do that project this summer. I've not heard otherwise from anybody at Whatcom County, or seen any emails from them stating otherwise, that they're still moving forward. But you know, there has been a number of emergency projects that Whatcom County's had to take on due to the November flooding events. So, you know, it is always a possibility, but I have not heard that. And the stormwater department's usually not, you know, our road department's been more inundated with that than the stormwater department. But yeah, so I don't know about that.
Thank you. I know it was an off topic, but thank you for answering.
Someone on the execs could email their project manager and see what the status is, and we could try to report back to the board once we hear.
I can email them.
But yeah, basically, you know, the major gist is that, you know, we've identified a way to save a significant amount of money to do the treatment that's required of us. And that treatment has to be done by the end of this year. So we have to do that this year. Whatcom County's not letting us push that off any longer. They've already basically given us almost 5 years grace period. So that is required. So at the very least, we have to do, you know, the very least we'd be looking to do the Spring Road project to at least cover the required mitigation, as well as the Spring Road mitigation. But yeah, we believe we can put together a significantly larger road project with the help of the Spring Road project. Does that make sense? Did I get to engineer talking to everybody?
Oh, yeah, you definitely went down the engineer road. But
sorry, I fell asleep. No.
Call the question.
A second.
Well, we have to make a motion first, but
I was teasing you, AJ. It was actually
nice
really awesome, and we really
presentation.
appreciate you going into so much detail. I was just teasing. Thank you so much.
Yeah, basically this will get us through, you know, that some more initial design, and then P&W will put together another package and bring it back to the board before we move forward with any bidding or anything like that. And we'll have a complete project put together for the board to approve for construction. So I guess I'll make the motion that the board of directors allocate $30,000 from the capital roads reserves for costs associated with the 2022 road repair project.
Second.
Does anybody have any additional questions or concerns? You know, and if you haven't had time to read through it, I do recommend you take a look at it, and you can always email me if you have any questions after the fact too. So, all right. Well, hearing no questions, I'll call the questions. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. All right, we will move forward to SVCA events. So this discussion, I did send out an email before the board. Just kind of, I sent over just a Word document with kind of a list of events that we've, that have taken place in Sudden Valley in like the past, and COVID kind of derailed a lot of the events over the last couple years. So basically, I'd just like to kind of have a discussion with the board. I know Timey emailed the board about an Easter event, and basically be looking to kind of put together a list of events that the board would like to see Sudden Valley undertake this year. And then we can send that back to Dan and staff to put together basically like some event plans, communication plan for each event, and a budget, for each event. And, some of these events can generate revenue, some of them can't really, and so I'm just going to pull up what I sent to everybody here as kind of a starting point. So this is kind of a initial list that pulled off from, Josh's communications committee has helped kind of, they do some help with some of the promotion of some of the events. Staff has, done some of the legwork with some of these events. Some of these events have been kind of put on by other entities and stuff. But this is kind of a list of things we could consider. This isn't any sort of comprehensive list or anything like that. But just kind of wanted to try to put together a list here tonight of, events that the board thinks, basically we have a $7,000 event budget in the budget. And so, we put together a list of some of these, and then we'll have to bring it back, put it in, staff can do some legwork for us to generate some plans for it. And then we can, that can be brought back to the board. Ideally we can try to get it back to the board at the next board meeting. So we can kind of see what those budgets would look like, what we would do with each event. Some of them are self-explanatory based on the title of the event. But some of them, we would, like the Valley Fair, Josh could tell you more about what all happened at an event if you didn't attend it. But there's, numerous different kind of things going on at that event. Whereas some of these are very like, polar bear plunge. They're just, everyone runs and jumps in the lake and then gets out in the middle of January and New Year's Eve or New Year's Day and, whatever. Like, some of them don't cost anything. Some of them will cost us money out of our event budget. Some of them we may be able to generate some revenue to cover costs of other events. Some of them are things that the board needs done, like the budget town hall or an AGM town hall event, the board candidate forums, those types of things. These are all events we want to plan for, have communication plans put together for so that we're hitting milestones, getting announcements out at the right time, maybe having some graphics and things to go with those announcements, that are visually appealing and those types of things. So yeah, I would just kind of like to open the floor to kind of discuss, what sort of events we'd like to see and try to maybe put together a list of things so we can at least, get staff working on helping us plan some of these. I think I saw Sonia's hand first, then Kim, then Josh. Okay. Sorry, I'm sharing my screen too, so I think I have everybody.
Okay, shown. So okay, or you can, Are you done? I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Kept talking on top of you. Sorry about that.
You can talk.
Well, I was just going to, like you mentioned, there's a $7,000 annual event budget. Now, some of these events on here, what the board is talking about is, these community events, these annual events that we're going to put our dues dollars behind. Now, it doesn't mean that these other events can't take place, because some of them will actually, they would be self-supporting. So it doesn't necessarily mean that just because the board doesn't put them on, the events calendar to allocate that budgeted amount, it doesn't mean that these other events can't take place. It just means that we're allocating these funds to these certain annual events so that we can go ahead and get them on the calendar. They can start to be budgeted and planned. And so I think for me personally, when I look at this, like, craft fairs, flea markets, those type of things, they generate, the vendors pay for the, the table space or the, booth space, basically. So the expense to us, there's some expense, but it's kind of minimal on certain activities like that. So for me personally, I would say don't consider those because they can still occur even if we don't choose to do them as an event. And again, I'm just speaking my opinion. The fishing derby, while it's really nice for the people that fish, we actually have to stock that fish. It's actually one of the more costly events, and it didn't have a lot of turnout. It had gone on for actually quite a long time, and then due to kind of the cost benefit, the lack of turnout, and everything, the previous board, a couple of years ago, stopped doing that. And there just really wasn't like a lot of outcry about that. So I thought I would say that. The fitness fair is something that should just be sponsored by the rec department. And again, I'm talking my opinion. But the other thing is, we know that there are certain annual events that people really, really love, right? Trunk or treat, or whatever you want to call the Halloween thing. Breakfast with Santa has been around forever. But the other thing I noticed on here, there's the July 4th event. One of the things that we talked about is changing the way that by the time we do a town hall event, we have already made a determination on our budget. It really doesn't give the community really any opportunity to have any input, because we've already made the decision. All the town hall or the board, whoever the board is, has already made the decision. So by the time we have the town hall, the budget town hall or the AGM town hall, all of that's been decided. We're really just telling community members nothing's going to change at that point. It's too late. And so one of the things we discussed last year with our new parliamentarian is to move that forward, to create an earlier type of a town hall or event, or where the community members, or forums where the community members can participate more fully in that process ahead of time, where we can get feedback. I was just going to suggest that we have these town hall meetings, perhaps combine them with the July 4th event, because that's generally when we do the cutoff for like the candidates have to have that's the open date for the candidate applications and all of that stuff. I'm just thinking maybe that would be like the kickoff of budget season, planning, people getting geared up. I don't know. It's just my thought that there may be a way to combine some of these.
Nobody wants to talk about the budget on July 4th.
Why not? It's
what
like
do you mean, why not? Everyone's already in half the people are half in the bag by the time.
That's what July 4th is.
No.
It's like
talking about a budget.
It's all about budget meetings. I don't or
it's not a budget
meeting. Budget meetings is fun. Don't put down budgeting.
Hey, we're just
town hall meetings.
It's a suggestion. It's my suggestion. You don't have to go with it. I'm just saying, generally where I'm from, they do political events on July 4th. It's a big celebration, and there's a lot of people out there stomping. So I don't know what goes on up here, but that's how it is. I'm used to that. It didn't seem weird to me, so I apologize.
I am not spending my July 4th having a budget meeting. Just gonna put that.
Well, it wasn't a budget meeting. It's a meeting for the community to get together, have a town hall, like in the town square, where people can talk, eat, picnic, see their friends, and just, speak up. It was just a suggestion. Sorry.
But I could segregate this list into like ones we think would generate, like ones that we don't think will cost anything, or that it's like a fairly negligible amount of staff time or something like that, versus ones we think we have to actually put money towards, and then ones that, maybe are, can be hosted by whatever other means. Kim?
Yeah, I like the list. I would like to look at this list in the context with staff abilities to be able to do these. My concern is this list is pretty large, and wanting to pare it down so that we can have maybe an event each quarter that we do well, versus having 12 events scattered throughout the year that are not planned so well. So, us maybe picking, something for the winter, a winter event, a spring event, a fall event, and, and so on. And then the budget town hall and AGMs, aren't those operations type of things? Are they really under the events budget?
Historically, money has come out of, like our events budget. Josh sent me some documents the communications committee had reviewed in the past and stuff. And they had budgeted money, like at a town hall event, we should, have some snacks and some coffee and, some soda or whatever, and not like a significant necessarily amount of money or whatever. And we could try to solicit donations of, food or something like that too, as well.
I just see those as more operations, and I look at events as.
These are all things that still require a communications plan. They still require coordination. They need to be on our events schedule. Like those are required events that we should do. To bring the membership involved into, some of these large decision making, and like the AGM town hall is like, and talking to the parliamentarian, he was like, we have discussion at our AGM on the floor, but 99.9% of the people have already voted. And so
it's a one-way communication, and I
moot at that point what people say, because everyone's basically already voted. So if you give them a town hall before the AGM where they can have debates back and forth as community members and discuss the budget, that's a much more meaningful way to go about it.
Okay, well, for my suggestion, I would like to see some of these things consolidated, and maybe try to have quarterly events for the community that we do well, and then build upon them. I just think there's a lot here, and I don't think that we are set up or structured at this time to be able to handle all these events. So my suggestion is quarterly events, plus in addition to the budget, AGM, and candidate forum meetings.
Josh, then I saw Sandy, and then I saw Timey.
Yeah, I think we, unless anyone has any changes or, additions, I think we should send this to staff and have them take a look at what it costs to put on some of these. you know, I know we have a discussion about sponsorships. I don't think we really can get into that right now. I mean, I look at this and the only thing I see that would actually not require, but would be beneficial to have a sponsorship would be the Valley Fair. And that's because we've got food trucks coming out and, you know, we're going to want to get people out there. And obviously I'm speaking as, this is my opinion as a community member. I don't want to open up the door for, you know, people that don't live here discussion, but you know, for something like the Valley Fair where there's music or whatever we call it, music and food trucks, we're going to want to get as many people out there as possible so that those vendors feel like, you know, their commitment is justified. And
so can I'm sorry, I was just gonna say, oh, okay.
So yeah, I mean, that's the only one I see that would actually, you know, benefit from a sponsorship versus just some entity putting their logo on there and helping you know, for a few hours. I think it would be great for to see what kind of costs are associated with that. And someone did mention that there's historical costs, so we can pull that, staff can pull that. And you know, it would be great if we can cover some of that or at least get enough money so that we can, you know, buy merchandise for members and such. And, you know, there's a whole bunch of stuff that can happen, but it would be great if we can, you know, put any additions here or for sure take anything out and then pass this on to staff so we can get a better idea. And hopefully we can, you know, if we can put a, you know, a due date for next board meeting, that would be awesome.
Sandy?
I just want to say from 3,000 miles away, I got a lot of feedback from the grandkids on a lot of these, that they were really important, especially in the pandemic, especially that because they had just moved in. And so I'd like to try what my day job makes me put everything in matrices. So could I just change how this looks so we could make it easier for the staff to fill in columns like approximate attendance or historic costs, that, you know, it's easier to evaluate a matrix than a list because you've got all the columns and what might be more important for our consideration next time.
Sure, we could ask staff to put them into a matrix for us, but that's a great idea. This right here is just kind of like a rough list of what's happened before.
Yeah, and I'm willing to draft one. It takes me maybe 10 minutes because my whole life is in graphs and charts, and so it wouldn't be a burden. I could just, you know, pass it by, see if it fits.
I'm fine with that if you want to take it and you know, dive into the matrix and send it back to the board.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Timey?
All right, well, I had kind of two questions. One was as far as like, so that it's not a staff overload, to try to get some community help on some, can we get some community help on some of these? Like, I understand, like I was kind of starting with the Easter thing. From what I understand, like CTK has done a lot of some great Easter events. Like, can we, you know, partner with them? They've already done some of that stuff and done a good job from what I understand, and do a sponsorship, like a coordinate with them rather, so that it's not all on our staff. It's volunteers from their side and maybe other community members that want to help out on something like that to kind of reduce staff load. Because holidays, we don't want staff being super busy. I mean, we want them to have their holiday too. And then my second question is, if we come up with something that we may want to do, but we're not sure if we can budget for it, can we ask the community, if we did this, are you willing to donate to this fund? And where I kind of think about that is years ago, and I don't know where we stand with fireworks and that for July 4th. Obviously, I know we don't want to have the community like the craziness that's been at the marina, but years ago there was the member in Sudden Valley who did professional fireworks. So he put on a professional show on that spit that goes from the, where the boats are, like, and down, that walkway that's kind of the long spit there. And we just, the community just asked, hey, like, he's going to be doing this. Are you willing to put some money in to make it a better show? And people did donate. So can we do that if we have something that works?
Yeah, I think we can certainly, part of that sponsorship discussion is like, typically, most jurisdictions have like a policy on, like, if we host an event, but someone wants to put like a sponsorship on the event, which is like, kind of what happened, I think, with the Valley Fair to an extent. There's like a policy on how that works, what it is. And then, there's also typically policies in place for if an outside entity, or a community member wants to put on an event, with their resources, that, there's guidelines and procedures in place on how to, execute something like that too. So I think, all of that is in play for sure. And I think we have to, it'd be nice to send this list back to staff, get some kind of, like was said, some historical costs associated with that, with some of these events. Some of them, maybe didn't have any cost with them or whatever, and that type of thing. So we can gauge and get a better understanding of, how far will our 7K budget go, which can help drive, how much we may want to look to charge to sponsor an event that we host and use our dues dollars to pay for, or how we may want to try to partner with an outside entity to, host something. And Sonia, unless you got something else, Timmy.
Would we be able to put on, if I could find someone who could do it and we could get the sponsorship, would we be able to do a professional fireworks show again?
They're prohibited.
Are we?
I don't know. What's the history of that, AJ?
We're prohibited
anywhere in the
until
watershed.
we change the policy. No, it's our own policies.
But
the
I think,
association.
No, I thought the county and the city combined it.
It depends on what the weather's like. There's been past events. But okay.
The North Shore residents sure shoot them off pretty regularly, but typically the board has voted each year whether fireworks would be allowed at the marina, whether that's in the kind of somewhat crazy capacity of supervised members shooting off fireworks that they bring, or a professional show like you stated, so
it only takes
it's always kind of a hot topic, and usually we kind of have that discussion sometime in like, late May or early June to make that decision on fireworks or not at the marina. But the last few years the board's voted no fireworks. But it is prohibited in our rules and regulations. So the board is actively going against our own rules and regulations to allow it at the marina. Sonia, you had your hand, and then I think Sam.
Well, so a couple of things. So if we were going to, in the past, there's been studies in the current fire chief has stated that if a coordinated event down at the marina, which has happened previously, actually does draw people out and tends to limit the amount of fireworks that are going off throughout the community. If that's something that we wanted to do, that's a discussion that should start probably in the next 2 months with the fire chief to try to coordinate that, because that's going to be the driving factor of whether or not he would think it's a safe event, and they would have to basically run it and monitor it. I just thought I would say that. But yeah, like AJ said, we're going to have to, if we do that, the board has to overrule our own policies, which it has happened in the past, but it is a vote of the board that would have to happen for that to occur. But I would just quickly, because I get the matrix thing, because this list is kind of bothering me too. Most of these events, for the most part, the budget, so we have $7,000. You can approximate that out of that, there would be 6 events total, at the most. So that you may want to consider that. And again, it doesn't mean that it limits any of them, but I'm just saying that I'm not exactly sure what we're doing as far as or I don't know exactly what we're doing. We're just going to give this whole list back to the staff.
No,
I don't even know what I don't know what a bike rodeo is. I've never even heard of that.
It's something, we could probably collaborate with like the Walk Mountain Bike Coalition. They do it down at Lake Padden all the time. They set up like a little skills course for bikes, and it's just, yeah, it was on a list, from previous years that was being considered. So I just had it on there, none of these have to move forward necessarily.
Kids decorate their bikes. They have fun with it. But
Sam, then Josh.
Cowboy hats included in that? Cowboy hats?
Only for you, Kim.
Yeah.
I was just noticing the time, and I'm starting to get a wee bit hungry. So I think we could take on some more comments or something else from the gallery. Might be all right. I think we just need to get moving along tonight.
So to help move this along, what we need to do here is take the list, which is a list, not the list. Ask staff for the feasibility of each one of these, where they would place them, get the previous information as far as the cost goes, and get staff's input on which they think would be, less painstaking to take on. If everything's good, that's cool. If we want to change, if they want to change something else, have any other ideas, it would be a good idea to, I think, to collaborate with staff on this. And then staff could, if they want to bring it to the communications committee to ask us about how we can help promote, that's awesome as well. I'm not sure what the motion would be, but other than creating a plan, as you said, AJ, what did you say? You put it pretty decently.
Well, some of these events are self-explanatory, but like the Easter spring event or the Valley Fair, what's actually entailed in that? Like, the Valley Fair has like face painting and there's, food vendors and, so it's just like, here's the like things that would be occurring at the event. The polar bear plunge is self-explanatory. Everyone gathers, jumps in the lake, gets out, dries off, goes home. Like, so it's like for the ones that are more complex, kind of what all would be entailed in that. And then, gather those, we can work with Joel to get some of those historical costs that we spent on some of these events. And then, I don't know if we have to necessarily have a communication plan by the next board meeting, but it would be good to have those historical costs associated with these events that we've done on a regular basis so that we can gauge what that budget is, so that we can parse this list down to like which ones are actually going to take budget capacity, which ones will fund themselves, which ones could we collaborate with on other parties and stuff to deal with if they're just not something we're gonna take on from a staff level kind of thing. That would be kind of my recommendation. So, yeah, that's about all I got.
So I'm going to help this through. So we're going to make a motion. It's going to go back to staff, and staff, like at the next board meeting, is going to return these so we can solidify at least, even though we might not have all of the details, we can solidify so we can put at least these events on the calendar so we can begin planning them and moving forward and working out the rest of the details. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. I second that.
Was that your motion?
I don't think
No, I'm just trying to get it.
I think Sam's ready to make a motion.
Okay.
Unmute. I just have one question. Directing the staff to do some of this, wouldn't that be that other guy? What's his name again? Dan Pike. Wouldn't that be in his neck of the woods? Thank you.
Well, Dan is staff. Come on, Sam. I'm getting my chops busted too much tonight.
I don't have any problem with taking this to the rest of the staff on behalf of the board.
All right, well, I'll make a motion that staff bring to the next board meeting some historical costs associated with these various events, so that we can make some budget determinations.
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we will, we'll move that here to staff. We'll get with Dan tomorrow and we can start doing some work on that next week.
There's some questions in the chat, AJ, about from Megan. Comments on the budget.
Yeah.
Property owners' comments come up next on the agenda anyway, and that might qualify.
Yeah, I think there's, we have records, I don't think it takes, that staff's been here for years to be able to, look at what we've done in the past. So yeah, and we have budget records, obviously, of money that we've spent, which Joel can help us pull and everything like that. So I think at this point it's just, pertinent. The main goal of tonight was to try to, cover some events that we would like to see happen, and then bring it back to staff to get more details on those.
I will say, to Megan's question, she was asking about people that have had longevity with association to know about the events, and volunteers and such. I will say for the Valley Fair, we had quite a few volunteers, and actually Trang, who's left comments there, she was instrumental in helping out a lot with that, which is awesome. So I don't think we'll have a problem finding volunteers. I think we're just looking for an actual plan to work towards at this point.
Can I say something? Sorry, I got bumped offline, but I do want to also respond to Trang, because in the chat, she mentioned this fishing derby that was held this last year. That's actually not the same, Trang, it's not the same fishing derby. That the one that you're referencing was a private event. It was the first time ever that had been held, and that's hosted out of Lake Whatcom. The fishing derby that we're referencing was a long time event it was an event for children that is done at the Lake Louise. So it's a different event that I just wanted to correct her because she was mixing up the two fishing derbies. But the other one was this past year that you're talking about. Yes, they are intending to do that as an annual event, and it will happen, but it's hosted by a private organization.
All right, so the next agenda item is really, wasn't really looking for a huge discussion. Was really thinking we just kick it over to document review committee to develop, a policy to bring back to the board on how we, policy and procedures of how the community will bring sponsors into like a Sun Valley hosted event, and then policies and procedures about if, like if an outside entity wants to, use our facilities to host an event in the community kind of thing. So I'm not, unless anyone has anything like strongly that they like to say, I would just make a motion that we ask the document review committee to bring both Sun Valley hosted sponsorship policy and outside entity hosted event policy to the board for approval.
Second.
Does anybody have anything major they'd like to say on that? I think, there's a number of people in document review, so part of the board will get to work on that. But I think it's pretty standard for most jurisdictions to have policies like that in place, just to make sure, we're not allowing someone to come in and like break the law if they're hosting an event in our facility, and then things like that. All right, Nancy.
AJ, I don't remember seeing any policies like that.
We don't have any policies like that.
Okay, you're not talking about something existed in the past to resurrect.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
This would be, bringing a new policy back to the board for our review.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. All right, and then I also add to the agenda just a quick discussion. I just want to try to just talk about dates for board orientation. I was usually it's on a Saturday. Usually it takes anywhere from like 4 to 6 hours. Our legal counsel comes and he talks about legal components, governance, and harassment training. And then our insurance agent usually comes to talk about our insurance policies and coverages. And then usually staff and department heads come to discuss operations side of the organization to the board. And so I was tentatively, I kind of wanted to have some dates to go back to our insurance agent and Richard, our legal counsel, with. And I was tentatively looking at maybe the 26th of February or the 5th of March. I just want to kind of gauge people's availability on those days. We'd probably look to do like a weekend or like a morning meeting, and then maybe, if we can get done before lunch, great. Or we could have, we could serve lunch or something too. Does anybody have any conflicts with those two dates? That would be a hard no for them.
AJ, will it be remote or will it be in person?
It's a good question. I mean, ideally, we could probably just do it remotely. That might make it easier for like Richard and the insurance agent to put it into their schedule. And it certainly makes it easier for all of us. At that point,
Do
we're
we
not.
still get lunch if we do it remotely?
They'll send Chinos to your door.
So
I just have morning conflicts on those days. As you know, I teach and I have 2 workshops on those Saturdays. So afternoons would work better for me if we do pick either of those days.
Okay. What time are you done?
12:30.
So we'd start at like 1 to 5-ish. But yeah, timing, I think, yeah. Well, I was tentatively thinking the 26th and the 5th. We'll need a little bit of time to put together the board binders, and everything like that, with Dan and staff, and get them all printed out and ready for people to pick up before then.
All right, sorry, I thought you had said the 6th at first for March, and that doesn't work for me, but either of the other dates, 26th or 5th are fine for me.
I mean, we could do either the Sunday or Saturday of either of those 2 weekends. I don't know what people's preferences are.
Well, the 6th is my anniversary, so I don't want to do it.
So I'm not hearing Kim's the only one with conflicts if we did it in the morning. So I'll, do people have conflicts on like the Sunday, the 27th? Timey had a conflict on the 6th. I just kind of want a few dates to go, but Richard's
I don't think
busy a lot of times. So,
okay.
I want to be able to give him a couple options too, just in case he can't do one of those days, because he's pretty important part of the orientation.
Well, I'm sorry, I have no conflict on the 6th. I thought you said 5th, so now I'm confused. But
both they're Saturday and Sunday of both those weekends, I guess, was I was starting to kind of throw out it.
Oh, gotcha.
Sorry for not being clear.
Saturdays are better for me if that makes a difference to anybody.
All right, well, I'll shoot for the 26th and 5th. And does anyone have opposition to like 1 to 5? Well, I'll see if that works for Richard then, and our insurance agent, and then I'll circle back with the board once I can confirm a date that works for both of them, because it has to, they both need to be there, so it has to work for both of them. So I'll shoot for those. If those don't work, we can see if maybe one of the Sundays, if that like the 27th works, since Timey's got stuff on the 6th. So, and I'll just circle back via email.
Sounds good.
All right. We'll move into property owner comments then.
Okay, jumped the gun a little earlier, but we're ready now. Looks like Trang has actually got her hand raised and is all ready to go. So I'll go ahead and bring Trang on over. Go ahead and unmute whenever you're ready.
Hey guys, sorry to keep you guys up later, but I just wanted to clarify a few things. In regards to the events that you guys were talking about, I guess what I think as you or the board, whoever the operation, I think the first thing you guys need to do is decide on which event is actually SV events. And in the past, for the last 3 years I've been here, there's been only 3 regular annual events, except for the year we were COVID shut down. So I don't see an issue with the budget, and I honestly don't see an issue with all that. But in regards to communication and advertisement, I think that's what you're trying to figure out, because whether it's sponsor or whether it's not sponsor, we do have to get the word out. So I understand that part as far as extra work for the admin office. But I guess the second question, and I totally agree with Kim earlier about the budget town hall, the AG and all that. I mean, most of the time that I've been to those, we had water. I think that's about it. So I'm not sure what budget we're using, unless you guys are getting lunch or something like that. But I honestly, was on the same assumption that that would come under operation, because, I mean, I don't know, but that's where I agree with Kim on that. And then in regards to sponsorship, yes, Sony, I do know that in the previous one, they did have a fellow Sun Valley resident, dad actually did that. And then this year was a new one. But I was just inputting it or indicating that we can still have the fishing derby and it would not cost us anything because it is sponsored by this new sponsor, the CCA North Sound. And they were quite happy. I actually participated, so did my kids. And they are looking forward to continue doing that because, again, we use our lake, it's free. The fishermen fish for free and they cover everything, food and everything, so that doesn't cost us anything to have that. And the thing I had issue this past summer when I was helping with the communication and some of the events is that there are events that are sponsored, that are ran by people, volunteers who require no Sun Valley staff members, that they have their own volunteers, they own equipment and money. And I just wanted to understand, is there a process or a form where, let's, for instance, the outdoor movie situation with CTK, and I believe the Wets home team wanted to do and sponsor. I don't understand why we would charge them to use an outside door when they have their own cleaning crew, their own food supply, and it was a community kind of for the community. So those were the, I guess, question I would have when you guys have your discussion. What actually is the process? If I was an organization, nonprofit or not, if I would like to do a community event for the community using my own resources and my own funds, is there a fee associated with that first? And yeah, I guess that's mostly that part. The flea market and the craft fair, the flea market in the summertime is the best time to use that. That's just revenue. That doesn't cost you guys anything. It does cost a little bit of the staff for setup and cleanup, but you're making money out of it. So those two things, I don't, like, so you mentioned, doesn't cost anything for the budget. So, yeah. And then I really would like our golf department to sponsor the lighted golf cart, if you guys want to do that. And I'm sure they have some little money since they got a 10% increase this year in revenue to do that. And that's kind of like their give back to the community for those who don't golf. I don't know. But that, again, I can't imagine costing that much. But after your list, and I looked at that list, the majority, the most costly, efficient one would be the Valley Fair. But again, as Josh mentioned, we didn't charge our vendors anything because we promised them people. And the people were appreciative and they showed up. Weather wasn't so great, but I don't see any of these events on here that would cost us more than a few hundred for refreshments or anything like that. So, and as far as the staff, as a person who volunteers for a lot of this, the number one issue I have with events is volunteers. The Valley Fair was amazing. I loved it, but we had 6 volunteers and 3 of them backed out. So that's where we really need to focus on. If we could have some kind of community volunteer for events, I believe I heard in the past they had that. As far as, that's where we would save, I say, majority of the meeting of the fees. But that's something I think the staff maybe can look at and work with these events, because that was probably the hardest part. That's it.
Yeah. I think to answer your question on the process for like an outside entity, we don't we don't have anything official like like an association policy that gives, you know, either outside entities or staff guidance on how to execute, you know, something like that. So that's, you know, what we sent to document review, is to try to, you know, put a policy in place so that, you know, there's a form that you fill out that gets documented with the association, and, you know, whether there's a fee or not, you know, that it probably depends upon what they're trying to do. You know, if they're using like our facility space, they should probably pay to rent, you know, that space like anyone else would have to do, you know, but that's all a discussion that the board has to have and finalize in a policy. You know, so I think most of it's just kind of been, you know, for lack of a better word, winged on the fly, basically, over the years, with no actual formal policy in place that I see on the website. If there is a policy in place, it's hidden somewhere else. And then, I think, you know, some of these events can definitely generate revenue that maybe we could, you know, add other events, you know, as we move on. I think the main goal I'd like to see is just, you know, documented communication plan for each of these events, so that we're, you know, like you said, we're communicating it well in advance and adequately to bring in people, especially for things like Valley Fair. We're bringing vendors, craft fairs, flea markets, those types of things, you know, have it in paper, you know, so that it can be picked up by anybody in the future, you know, that's doing it, and we have that documentation readily available to support the events and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah.
And
so the document part that you guys talked about was more like the budget part, but I don't know if you guys have a documentation of how much or how many people it took, like volunteers and all that stuff, because that's important too. Because with the craft fair that we did, the holiday fair, besides the staff, which they set up and stuff, we didn't have any volunteers to clean. So it was me and my 3 kids putting away the tables and stuff like that. Wow. So that's something important that when we take into these events, to kind of consider that part, how much help can we get? And we don't expect the staff to do all of this. This is, you know, not a 24-hour job for them, and especially during the holiday events. But we do need a system set up easier for volunteers to sign up. And like you mentioned, AJ, I think the biggest part was the timing wise. A lot of them was like a week before or 2 weeks before, as far as the communication. And that hurts us a lot in volunteering, because there's people who plan, especially with holidays, July 4th and all that stuff, they need to know in advance. So the sooner we can get that information out, especially communication wise, the more likely we could get volunteers. Because I know there are people out here in this community that want to help and be a part of it. And I mean, that was what I loved about it. And that's why I volunteered, because I wanted to create that community and fun things, especially this year, since we didn't have a lot of fun things. But yeah, I think what you mentioned, I just wanted, when you do talk, Dan, to your staff, and when you guys are planning these events, do please take in consideration how many manpower it requires to run that, and not just staff manpower, but actual volunteers. That's all.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing to consider, and definitely having a part of our communication plan needs to be that volunteer recruitment. Sonia?
I can comment. So that's one of the reasons of trying to narrow these down about which of these events are funded by community members' dues dollars. These events that are funded by dues dollars, if you're a nonprofit, you have to retain control of those funds at all times. The assets and the resources of this nonprofit can't be directed by a third party or a volunteer. So on those types of events, they're run by staff. It doesn't mean that volunteers can't participate in them, but it actually addresses the very thing that you're talking about, because some of the problems that you're talking about occurred because they were events that volunteers were leading, right? And then on some occasions, staff supported it. When you were discussing CTK, the issue with CTK is that our staff fully supported those. We have to pay them to set up and tear down and be there throughout those events, because our contract with CTK is when they have an event, our staff supports it. That was the issue with that, is because it kind of did an end run around. It did actually, those events cost us quite a bit of money. So they weren't free events. They may appear to be free.
Which event are you talking about, Sonia?
I'm talking about the movie nights actually cost us money. They say a lot of these things that appear to be free events, they're not. There actually is a lot of staff time behind them. And so, and there is an accounting of how much staff time goes into these events, as somebody mentioned in chat. And that's why on average, it is less than 2,000. It's probably around 1,500 on average of most of these events, you know, and that can be pulled up. And I also agree with you. I agree 100%. I think the golf course, the golf, you know, the parade, that would be awesome. I agree. I think that would be great for the golf club to sponsor that. And your points are 100% valid, which is why this is actually why this was kind of put back this way. So we could go, which of these events are we actually going to have as a community sponsored event led by staff to ensure that, you know, there's no gaps like that. And it doesn't mean volunteers can't participate. It also doesn't mean that those other, like what you're talking about, it doesn't mean that those privately sponsored events can't occur. Right? We're just trying to determine which of these events do we want to put our staff resources and our community assets behind, if that makes sense. But it's really to address what you're talking about. And so, and to kind of, yeah.
No, I don't know me too bad. I understand that, but I was attending all outdoor movie night this summer, and there was no staff there that I saw. So I'm not sure on where the cost to SCE was for. I mean, I volunteered to clean up and I volunteered to tear down, and there was no SB staff unless they were attending the movie night. But I don't see the cost to that event, as you mentioned, but maybe you're seeing something I don't see, but that was not a staff event or sponsor event. They advertised it. They even used their own marketing firm to do the flyers and stuff for it. So I don't see where that costs Sun Valley anything. So
I think the simple solution to that is if, you know, an entity wants to have an event, they have an event. You know, I'm not sure what our involvement is at that process other than making sure that, you know, our facilities are being rented appropriately and so on and so forth.
I totally agree. It's more like the calendar situation. It's just making sure there's no other events or no other pay event that's happening or occurring at the same time so it doesn't conflict. So that would be the only thing I would see the admin or the park and rec is like, hey, we're having this event at this date. Is there anything going on? So we don't conflict like we did this year with the Valley Fair situation happening at the same, you know, day. But otherwise, yeah, I don't see an issue with sponsor event if they have their own people, their own funds, and they're like, I agree, AJ. I mean, if they use the facility inside and it requires maintenance and people to clean it up, yes, there should be a fee, just like we charge flea markets and craft fair for a table in a booth. But if they're having it outside and they're using their own crew to clean up, I don't understand why they would be. But yeah, that's what we need.
There may just need to be like waivers, you know, like they're waiving our liability if someone got hurt while they're hosting their event, forms, things like that may need to be required of people who want to host events that we have not been doing in the past. Is kind of my thing. I'm less concerned about the money component of that as like just the liability component. something
see
were to
that.
happen.
Okay, that's my only input about the event. But yeah, I don't think it's that big of a deal or as much as you guys think as far as the event for the staff to maintain. Literally, like I mentioned, it's only like 3 major events that the residents of Sun Valley, you know, miss and love. And those are the ones that I think the focus of the staffing and the money should go to. And Tommy, I was thinking about Valley Fair in July, or Sonia, Valley Fair in July 4th being combined, so like to speak, where you don't have fireworks, but you have hot dogs and like that picnic, like you mentioned before. So you can possibly combine that event if you want to, you know, put 2 events together. Just for Sonia's suggestion.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thank you so much. I actually think that sounds pretty awesome.
Plus, I mean, you guys hit it with the golf cart parade. I mean, I think it was last year, the year before. I think it's actually every year someone's like, hey, are we doing this? So just having a plan together and making sure that it's on staff's, you know, docket, then we'll be good. I don't think any of this is complicated. It's just getting it sorted out and make sure we're doing the appropriate things.
Anything else, Trang? Take that as a no. Well, thank you for your discussion, Trang.
All right. Thank you, Trang. I'll go ahead and move you back to the attendees. And I've got a hand raised from Megan at this point. Megan, I've brought you over to the meeting. You can unmute when you're ready.
Thank you. I assume I can be heard.
We can hear you. Yep.
Thank you. So I just want to say I really appreciate all this discussion. And I think that part of what makes Sun Valley such a cool place to live is that we have events and things that do bring the community together. So I fully support us continuing to do everything we can to ensure those continue. I would just ask, when document review is looking into creating a policy or bringing it to the board for review, that we just keep in mind not making it harder for events like this to happen for the community as an unintentional result of the policy. So however it's written, if it could make sure, yes, it covers us with liability, but you know, for community groups who want to come in and say, hey, you know, let's have this 5K we haven't had in the past, but how cool would it be to do this? Or, you know, let's do this polar bear plunge. A lot of these things came about from people totally unrelated to SVCA as an association, and it was community members saying, hey, here's a cool idea. So just want to make sure we don't put, you know, monetary barriers or any sort of policy barriers that make it harder for our community to come together. I'd rather us see it, you know, streamlined and functional and having volunteers, but not making the process more difficult for people.
Yeah. My goal would just be to have kind of industry standard procedures in place.
All right. Well, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Megan. All right. Anybody else want to jump in for the final round of property owners' comments tonight? Just use raise hand in Zoom. All right, that might be it for tonight.
Just to answer, you know, Athena in the chat asked for the spring road or the roads repair capital request to be posted to the website. It is. John posted it to the website just before the board meeting, and it's included as an addendum to the agenda on the board agenda links.
Yeah, there should be a second link there.
Anyone else? Bueller?
Not seeing anything more.
All right. Well, thank you everyone for the discussions, and do I have a motion to move into closed session?
Motion to move into a short closed session.
It'll be short.
Okay.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, see you over there.
I just looked at my watch.
I know it's getting late.
I know. I'm gonna find myself up till 1 o'clock trying to decompress from this.
Going to bed. I'm not going to be up till 1 o'clock. I need my beauty sleep.
Well, you're lucky. I can't fall asleep immediately after these things. My brain's always just.
Oh, you're too cute. Yeah.
I just put the TV on and put a sleep timer on and.
Oh no, I can't do that. TV keeps me awake.
Oh,
All
really?
the lights and the talking, and I'm just like, I like dark and white noise. Well, I used to like dark and silence, but then I had kids and they fall asleep with white noise, and then there's monitors, and so now I like the white noise machines.
You need somebody to drive you around the block for a while till you fall asleep in the back seat, or
no, I can't sleep in cars either. Cars, planes, gotta be flat, laying down, horizontal, can't be vertical.
We lose Dan.
That's all right.
Dan's
We
not
have
here.
enough to adjourn.
Do we have an 1, 2, 3? Well, we got 5. We could adjourn.
Yeah, because I can vote on a procedural motion and adjournment is.
I think she made that up. She's
There you
making
go.
that up. We have
Motion to
stay
adjourn.
Well,
Second.
who? Josh had to go. So who
Oh,
are we
man, I
missing?
seconded it.
Sandy.
Sandy's probably got lost in link land.
John said he's voting on this one.
I'm no expert on this. I think you have to vote, come back to open session first too.
Yeah.
Oh, shoot. Okay.
Well, let's just. All right, there's Sandy. That's good enough for me at this point. I'm over it. All right.
The motion to go into open session.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right. No action taken as a result of closed session. Motion to adjourn.